Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode from us here at the Digilog Collection. In this one, it'll be a short one actually. I want to talk about the Bentley Compuvision, which is a Pong-style console that was released very late in the Pong line of game consoles in 1983. That was basically at the very tail end of the what we now call the first generation game consoles, which started in 1972 and lasted roughly until about 1983. It was obviously started by the Magnavox Odyssey, the first ever console, game console, and it was continued mostly by various versions of the Odyssey console, such as this one. The 4, there were 3000 and other versions, and of course there was a Coleco version, there was a Sears version, and so on. What was typical of the this first generation game console was that the games were generally fixed, as in the consoles contained the games themselves. Interesting enough, the original Magnavox Odyssey, the games were actually on cartridges, but other than that, whatever you buy the console without, this is the games that you have. They tended to be black and white, and most of the time were just variations of Pong. Basically, you have paddles on the screen and a ball that's generally a square that moves around. This is basically more or less the same. Like I mentioned, it was released by a company called Bentley Industries, and it was licensed. They basically licensed this from Magnavox itself. They just repackaged to look slightly different, and it came out in 1983. Basically, so late that it was 7 years after the Fairchild Channel F console, which was released in 1976, which at the time had cartridges that you could play games. So this, I suspect it was very cheap at the time, and you could buy it in basically department stores. It was not anywhere to bleeding edge. True to its form, first generation console, it only contains Pong games. In fact, contains 4 games, and tennis, soccer, squash, and solo handball. And they even actually say that you never need to buy any other game. For them, this is actually a plus. Anyway, let's open the box and see what is it inside. I will give Bentley one thing. The box actually quite interesting, and it doesn't have the fake game graphics that other consoles at the time had, because well, that wouldn't be very realistic, would it? So once you open it, it comes with a manual, and inside you get the antenna adapter, which is sealed and new, so you can connect your TV, and the console itself. Now, the console is powered by 4 AA batteries, which is very common at the time actually. Most of the Magnavox Odyssey series are indeed powered by 4 AA's, and this was licensed from them. It makes sense to be the same. It does, however, have also a 6 volts DC power connector here on the back. That does not actually, the power source is not actually shipped with, but I assume if you can have a generic 6, it needs to be a DC 6 volts, you can just power this that way. On the front of the console, you have obviously the power button. Then you have the 4 game selector. There's a reset button, and then different difficulty settings. You could, for example, set the ball movement speed, the size of the pedals, and what's the other one? The ball angle, so it makes slightly more challenging play. There are two controllers, and they come with cables that extend. One interesting thing to remember to understand is that while they look like just joysticks, they are not joysticks. They are actually just turn knobs, which is again something that the first generation console had, because most of the time you just have to move your object on the screen in only one dimension, so you didn't need a two-dimensional joystick. It wasn't until the, for example, the Atari 2600 had proper joysticks, because you have two axes of movement for the characters, but here there's no need. One thing I would say though is that the controllers themselves are fairly well built, and they're very smooth. There's a very nice movement feel as you turn the knob. So also doesn't look as good in the picture. I expect it to be something lighter and more silvery, but it's just black with gold writing. Not bad. And here you have the antenna cable that plugs into this connector. The manual is actually, it's quite interesting, and it comes not just a manual, but it gives you a check for $100 to buy various electronic products from the early 80s. But as I was saying, the manual has some interesting notices for players. Besides description of the games and so on. I noticed here at the end, the care and cleaning has mentions, for example, that reduce the brightness and increase the contrast of the picture on the TV screen as much as is comfortably possible. Displaying the games on too bright of a screen with too little contrast for too long may damage your TV set. Back in the days when you had CRT TVs. And even a more interesting one, it says, do not operate your TV games continuously for more than 40 minutes. After 40 minutes, turn the power switch on the game console off, but keep the power switch on the TV on for at least 15 minutes. I have no idea why that would be the case. I assume this is to help probably with screen burn-in, because the white paddles and the ball position really don't change much. They don't change the position much on the screen. So yeah, I mean this is it. Let's turn it on and see how the games look. Alright, so when you turn the console on, you have a choice of 4 games. The first one that you're offered is called Practice, which is kind of like a squash game, but you're just one single player. The second game, it's an actual squash game, and here you have a choice of 2 players. The third one is soccer, which is interesting because you have 4 paddles, 2 for each of the players. And then you also have, last but not least, it's the normal tennis game. You can also play with the size of the pad, the ball speed. First of all, you can make it a lot faster. Therefore, it's a little bit harder to play. And you can also change the angle of the intersection between the ball and the paddle. And last, you can also make the paddles a lot smaller. So this would be fairly difficult. As you can see, I can't actually even hit anything. So yeah, I mean there is a audio feedback every time something hits. Nothing new. All the Odyssey consoles have exactly the same games. There you go. Enjoy. Alright, well, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I actually plan to do a few more videos on various somewhat unknown or obscure Pong-style consoles from the first generation. Most of them were fairly rare. They were one-off licensed products, and I just want to show them and make people aware of them. So again, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and see you next time for more interesting videos of either vintage computers or vintage consoles.